You can take a look at this. I believe this was the beginning of the incident, and we'll get a shot of it afterwards. Kind of tell our audience what's going on in that picture.
Well, this is a shot, it's the reaction, because prior to that, Johnson had spun me out, and this is after I spun Johnson out. And then in the same race, I went out to spin out his teammate, Roy Martinelli.
Okay, and I want the audience to notice that on the car that has a number 7, the 7 car, there's a leg in the number 7, a girl's leg, obviously, but also if you notice the scallop paint job, and I can tell you, because I'm doing this from memory, that it was a red and white car, and it was a scallop paint. Am I correct?
It was red and white, and they had this leg on it that looked like a number 7, or vice versa. 7 looked like a leg.
Right, and the interesting thing about it was the other car, the Johnson car, if that was the Martinelli car or the Johnson one?
This was Johnson that run the 7.
And the Martinelli car, I believe, was an 8 ball number 8, or no?
It might have been 8. I think it probably was 8, yeah.
But also painted the same way?
Same color.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to comment on this particular picture, which I understand is later, within minutes of that other one. Tell our audience what we're looking at here. You don't have to show it to the camera because we're going to take the shot afterwards.
This is after I took the other team car out in the same feature race, and then I was stalled, and he ran into me about 3 times, and I got out, and he ran across the hood, and I'm catching him in midair, and it was kind of a little bit of a wrestling match, but I was barred for 2 weeks after that, and so were they.
Yes, as a matter of fact, so the audience knows what they're looking at. In the picture that you're seeing, we've got the checkered shirt is Gene Marmor, and it looks like that's Martinelli coming over the car, coming after you?
It's Martinelli, and I was warned before the race started that they were going to do something that they would probably get thrown out for, so it did come to pass. Okay,
now we're looking at it 30 years back, 30 years later. You got barred for 2 weeks. They got barred for 2 weeks. Was it worth it?
Sure, I'd do it again.
That's unbelievable. 64 years old, you're not going to back up a step. I also want to talk just a little bit here, and pardon me if we walk past you, because I'm sure that you probably, as a cadet driver there, you must have had a great deal of admiration for this guy, too.
Oh, yes, I knew him quite well, and he was the guy to catch.
But no question about it, and again, I used to look back at those times. I was trying to, believe this or not, folks, and I know our motorsport knowledgeable audience is going to understand this. When I built my stock car and started racing there, I had never heard the word stagger, had no idea what it meant. Can you imagine a guy going out on the racetrack like that?
Yeah, it's unusual terminology, yes.
Yeah, but to not even know something like that existed and try to go around a racetrack, do you think it can be done?
It can be done various different ways. You don't have to stagger. You're talking about tire stagger?
Yeah, but I think that...
Or stagger in general. You know, I mean, the cars are biased so that they can get through the turn better.
Right. Well, the point I was trying to make was that I had so little knowledge that I look back now, and I can't believe I even attempted it, and yet, at that time, I thought I was going to go out there and really do some business, and it obviously didn't work out that way.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, now, I want to just back up just a little bit, and I want you to tell our audience what we're looking at here. I'm trying to start at the beginning. We'll start with this one, and tell the folks, again, you don't have to show it to the camera. We'll take the shot afterwards.
This is the year 1947, and it was a 32 Ford frame with a 47 Ford engine that was hopped up, and camshaft and carburetors, and a 30 Model A body that the roof was cut off, and we started racing those at Soldiers Field in 47.
Okay.
In that fashion.
Okay, and then this one?
Well, that's a year later. It's the same car that tried to make it look a little better, and chopped it down and brightened it up, and again at Soldiers Field, we were racing then.
Okay, now, who was running the Soldier Field operation?
Andy Granatelli was later famed Mr. STP. He wore the trench coat, and he said he would give it the racer's edge with STP.
Now, as a matter of fact, I'm sure you guys have heard of Andy Granatelli?
No, I haven't.
You have not really?
No.
Peggy?
They're too young.
Oh, I can't. Wait a minute. That's not possible. Joanna, Andy Granatelli? You've never heard of him?
No.
The guy that kissed Mario Andretti in the winner's circle at the Indy 500?
Never heard of him.
I thought everybody would recognize the name. This is terribly difficult for me.
It's interesting for me to see these old pictures and how the cars were and things.
Well, I'll tell you something that's even more interesting is how things don't really change. I just for a moment want you to describe what this picture is, and what I want the audience to focus on here is the guys in the car.
Okay, these are all friends of mine. In fact, I think 3 of them I went to grammar school with, and this is a car that I had bought. It was a 32 chopped and channeled Ford 3-window coupe, and it was the forerunner to my first car that I raced at Soldiers Field. I took that body off and put the other body on because they wanted a top on the car, and I didn't want to ruin this top. So
Okay.
That's 1947.
Okay, so we're looking at guys working on race cars, stock cars, if you
I
will.
was 17 years old then.
Okay, we're looking at guys in the late 40s working on their race car, and I happen to have a personal picture of my own here from the late 50s, and I want the audience to just take a look at this, and what I will describe, this is me and a couple of friends of mine, Dave Dixon and Herbie Horn, that were working on my stock car. You know, it doesn't change, does it? Just the style of the car changes, but the guys still look the same.
They look pretty much the same. In fact, you could almost pass for brothers.
Like gangsters. We all look like gangsters, and we're rather proud of that, too, as a matter of fact. Okay, you didn't back away at all, then, from being the bad guy, for being played up as a bad guy. And I understand there's a little bit of a story as to how you got that reputation of somebody that you spun out and thought of, or somebody that spun you out, and you thought about it over the winter and came back and spun them out at the beginning of the next season, or do I have it totally wrong?
No, yeah, they used to say that I had a memory like an elephant, and if I didn't get them this season, I'd get them next season. So then they didn't mess with me. That was what I liked to keep, the reputation of being a bad guy.
So you thought it was of value to you, that it was sort of intimidating?
Yeah, definitely. You know.
And that's why the black car and all that?
Well, that went hand in glove. I like black.
Okay. Now, I've got to ask John. Yes, Peggy?
He doesn't seem like a bad guy to me.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. It sounds to me like what he is a smart guy, and it's a cover.
It's a cover.
It's one of those things, you use this to your advantage. If you got guys thinking that they better not touch your car, maybe they'll stay behind you instead of passing you when maybe they could pass you. Am I right?
Well, it's more of a thing that you do a bad turn to me and you're going to get it back.
Okay, so you weren't kidding.
This year, it'll be next year.
Yes.
So these spin-outs were deliberate?
Oh, that happened, the ones that we just talked about before, the ones that we showed you the pictures of, it was deliberate because apparently Martinelli and Johnson, as I understand the story, Martinelli and Johnson had indicated ahead of the race that they were going to take care of Gene Marmor. And apparently Gene Marmor did in fact get taken care of, but didn't just walk away with his tail between his legs, went back on the racetrack and took both of those guys out and ended up in a fight. Am I close?
You were right on.
So, yeah, that's how that all came about.
It's like a demolition derby.
Yeah, but with very expensive, full-blown late-model stock cars and everything, and it's something you don't see a lot of today anymore with public relations people in the game and all that sort of thing. They, of course, advise guys against that.
Well, it still happens, but they frown on it, you know.
Yeah.
It happened at Indianapolis, the one that was on TV just recently, and who was the guy I'm thinking of? The three brothers are racing, and they're spinning each other out at Indianapolis at Bodine.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. The Bodine brothers, talking about the stock car.
Yeah, they spun each other out, and that wasn't very nice, and that's a multi-million-dollar thing there, you know.
Multi-million-dollar deals. In any event, we've got, again, we've talked a little bit about the history of this thing, and when O'Hare, you were racing, if I understand this correctly, you were racing at Soldier Field, and as a matter of fact, we had a whole list of tracks that you raced at. You raced literally at all the tracks in the area.
Just about all of them.
And John, did you race only at O'Hare?
No, I raced at Raceway Park in Santa Fe, but on occasions, mostly at O'Hare.
Okay. Now, I want to take a break here for a moment because I want to take and indulge myself a little bit. Some of our regular viewers know that I've written a book some time ago, and don't try to go out and get it because it's not published. But there were a couple little pieces in there about O'Hare Stadium, and I want to share them with you, and then we're going to go back and talk with these guys a little bit more. Let's see, Joanna, we had you do this last time, right? So now we're down here with Peggy. Please tell the folks.
Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back.
We found it interesting that all the things Gene, John, and Bill were talking about happened some 30 to 35 years ago, right on the spot in which we were standing. Few remember there was even a track there. Let's go back and join Bill for his earliest recollection of O'Hare Stadium.
It was a warm summer evening, and I had arrived at a now-defunct O'Hare Stadium with my freshly completed stock car. Getting there had been as tough a battle as building my car. I was only 17, and I had the somewhat common situation of my parents being totally opposed to my involvement in racing. Consequently, I had to build the thing on the sly. This included renting a garage, as my parents didn't have one and wouldn't have let me use it for racing purposes if they did. It's not easy to go to high school and work enough hours part-time to finance even a low-buck effort as well as have the time to work on it. I wouldn't even consider trying it now at age 40, by the way, folks, that was some 10 or 11 years ago, with a complete welding and machine shop at my disposal. But you do things like that when you're 16 and you don't know that you can't. Somehow it gets done. Sort of. Anyway, we were looking over the car to see how well it had survived the 20-mile journey. We were discussing how hard it would be to build a tow bar. We had towed it with a tow rope. That was a little short. The tow rope that was a little short, causing us to bang into the tow car a few times during the jaunt to the track. Closely inspecting the tow car, we